in this ring, post to post, in between these ropes. There's no one that does it quite like me, because I'm another animal. There's no phoning it in. There's no days off. I don't care if it's dark, Dynamite, or pay-per-view. Sammy Guevara is the best ever every single night in this ring. And sooner or later, everybody's gonna see what I've been seeing all along. I've said it since the first press conference I was ever a part of here in AEW. I said no matter who comes out here, whoever says they're the best, there's no bigger or brighter star than me. No one's gonna outshine Sammy Guevara. So sooner or later, everybody's gonna see what I see right now. Not only is Sammy Guevara the best, but Sammy Guevara is a champion here in AEW.
Welcome to Talk AEW, the AEW podcast from GoombaStomp.com and TiltMagazine.net. I am Ian Goodwillie, and with me, of course, is the editor of both Goomba Stomp and Tilt Magazine, Ricky D. Ricky, how you doing this week?
I am fantastic. It was another dramatic episode of AEW Dynamite, but I don't really want to talk about the matches. We can talk a bit about the matches and promos and the segments and the drama, but I really want to just talk about the production values. Like, if you were a director or a producer, what would you change?
I think there's two things right off the top of my head I would get rid of. Number one, they keep showing these weird camera angles. I don't know if they're GoPros they have attached to the ring posts, but they keep showing the shots from them, and they're always blurry because whatever's covering them is, I don't know, dirty from getting beaten up or something. I would get rid of those cameras. I get nothing from those shots. Like, they're just really weird close-up shots of people's faces or butts or something, and I don't need that. And the other one is every once in a while, sometimes they do it during the match, sometimes they do it during entrance, but they take that weird, I think they just have like a camera suspended above the ring and that weird top-down angle where I'm looking at the top of Justin Roberts' head, and I like Justin Roberts, but I don't need to see him from that angle. It does nothing for me. I would immediately cut those out. I think they had nothing whatsoever.
I do think the bird's eye view looks good for some matches, but with reason. Like, it was fantastic for the cage match between Wardlow and Cody Rhodes because it really gave us an idea of how tall that cage was. I mean, Cody said he's never going to, wrestle in a cage that tall ever again, and next time a cage won't be that tall is a mistake on the part of AEW. But that camera shot really gave us an idea of how far he dropped when he did the moonsault from the top of the cage. It was insane. So I think that camera shot works for some matches. It would work, for example, for a ladder match.
Absolutely. No, I can't agree with you more on that. That's great.
Okay, so let's look at this episode of Dynamite to use as an example. So we kick off the show with Hangman Page and John Silver. It was a really great match. No complaints here about the actual match itself. I think both men did a really good job. I wish they would put John Silver against someone that he can actually win against, right? Because he's not going to beat Hangman Adam Page this soon because he's just getting over.
Yeah.
But the point is, I'm watching a match, and I noticed something I never noticed before, and you might actually like this, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel, but the actual ring, it's so gray. Like, the mat is gray. The ropes are gray. Like, when you watch WWE, like SmackDown, Raw, NXT, they all have their own specific look. And I guess maybe I'm asking too much because right now it is the pandemic, and they're filming Dark and Dynamite in the exact same venue. And even before, they would film Dark matches right after Dynamite was finished, right? But I kind of wish, and maybe this is like a bigger topic, but I kind of wish Dark and Dynamite looked different. And maybe, again, a bigger topic, that's when we talk about them having a second show. But Dark kind of is a second show. Like, it is. Like, I know it's on YouTube and not broadcast live on television, on a television network. But yeah, it all looks the same. And I don't know if that's a simple adjustment of changing the ropes or the mat or the lighting or the backdrop. But, like back in the days, Nitro did not look like Thunder. And SmackDown does not look like Raw. Like, when you're watching SmackDown. When you're watching Raw. If I'm watching a match on Dark and you didn't tell me it was Dark, I was just on YouTube, I could easily mistake it for a match on Dynamite. Like, I mean, Sammy and Marco had a match this week, and if I didn't know it was on Dark, I would just assume it's on Dynamite because Sammy's usually on Dynamite.
That's a solid point. I remember back, if this is a couple of years ago now, it's when they were, well, they still don't know what to do, but like they finally have 205 Live mixed in with NXT. That makes sense. But when they were trying, there was a period where they tried to do 205 Live matches during Monday Night Raw, but they actually swapped out the ring, like the ropes and the apron and everything, and like had 205 logos on the mat. Like I think they were just broadcast from, like they were just lights that were shining down, but they still, even for just that one match, swapped out stuff so it looked like 205 Live. So you knew this was a 205 Live branded thing. It wasn't the best idea on the face of the earth, but at least they went through with the execution. There's whether they're wherever they're taping Dark, whatever. But if it's a dark match, they need different color ring ropes. They need different color aprons. They can leave the matte for all I care. It can stay gray. That's fine. I would like it if they changed it, but if it's too much work, I get it. But swapping out the ring ropes and at the very least the apron, that shouldn't be too difficult to do. Just so, and even what's the even whatever we call it, like tarps that are over the ring guards, like the barriers between them and the fans and the other wrestlers and such, like having that all themed to the show is incredibly important. And I think it's important. Like Dark, for they may talk, like the show they're talking about right now is the third show. That's reality. Dark is a show. Dark is my preferred show. I love watching Dark, and it's getting longer and longer, and more is going into it. Like they can, it's what the beauty of that show is. It could be 45 minutes one week and 2.5 hours the next week. Like it just depends. There were 17 matches on Dark this week. There are way more matches than were on Dynamite. That is a lot of wrestling, and it needs to have a proper brand, not just be, okay, here's a bunch of other matches that we had. There was some great stuff this week, and I would love to see them. I agree with you completely. I'd love to see them put the effort into the visual brand of that show.
So I'm actually comparing it right now on Dynamite, and it looks exactly the same. They made no changes whatsoever. So when you watch Taz do his promo in the ring, which by the way was amazing, Cody came out, and then
gold.
We get the announcement of Taz's son working with Cody. I thought that entire promo was incredible. I mean, Taz is just like, I mean, I know he screws up every so often with the lines. Doesn't matter. He's just really good on the mic, and I'm a huge fan of Team Taz, but I digress. Again, it's like I could have been watching an episode of Dark and would think that was part of Dark, because right now my problem with Dynamite, and again, I know it's a pandemic, it looks like I'm watching Dark. And here's the thing, like, yes, maybe it might be time consuming to actually put new aprons and mats and ropes and whatever it is you got to do in different lights, but technically it should actually be a lot easier because they don't have to move from city to city, from arena to arena. So it should actually be easier for them to change the look of the set. I'm going to call it the set, right? So I'm not entirely sure why they don't do it. I just think they should. A few more things that I would change. This will be controversial, and I think you might disagree. I'm not a big fan of having the ramp extend all the way to the ring. Like, I just don't understand the point of having that.
Honestly, I hate it. I hate it when they do that, where they have like a really long raised ramp going down to the ring. I like it when the ramp comes down, they're at eye level with the people, and then they get in the ring. That whole thing, I think personally, I find it like maybe it has to do with the way they're set up. Maybe it's closer, but I feel like they can push the ring a bit further away from the steps or redesign the stage or do something. To me, I worry constantly that somebody's going to do a back body drop over those ring ropes or do a dive or something, and they're going to land on the damn steps back first or something. And I think that's happened a couple of times, hopefully as planned spots. Somebody's getting really hurt on that thing. I am not a fan of that in the least. I would love to see that go away.
Okay, so I'm not alone. They should change
it.
No, you're not. Like I think of what happens when AEW gets bigger and someone wants to come out riding a motorcycle, like Jericho or Darby Allin or whatever. You can't ride around the ring because there's a freaking ramp that goes all the way to the edge of the ring. Like, there's a lot of things you can't do. And, like, I know they're not as big as WWE. They're not selling out venues where they have, like, 80,000 people in attendance. But still, like, I just feel like it's a danger. I don't think it adds value to the wrestling matches. Like, I'm so sick and tired of them using it as a prop to, quote-unquote, hurt wrestlers in a match and, like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I also really, really dislike, and I feel so negative this week, but I really, really do not like picture in picture. I don't think anybody likes picture in picture. And on all honesty, yesterday watching Dynamite, at least I did not get picture in picture. It went straight to commercial, full screen, no picture in picture, and I actually preferred it. The picture in picture doesn't do anything for me. I get distracted. I can't like focus on the little rectangle at the edge of the screen. I would prefer they cut a match every week and use that time for actual commercials, and I can actually see a full match, because there's been too many times where I'm watching a fantastic match and they go picture to picture and I'm missing all of the drama, all of the commentary, all of the amazing moves and action. And yeah, it's picture in picture, but it's not the same. It's not the same, man. And so I would love for them to just get rid of a match and then give us an actual normal show without picture in picture, go to commercials like the old school traditional way.
I have two things to say about picture in picture. One, the only wrestler or anyone who's ever made good use of it is Sammy. When he comes out and does his card thing with it, that's actually funny. Like, he doesn't do it very often, but when he stands there and he's got messages written on the cards, and he just stands there staring in the camera, throwing the cards on the ground, so a picture in picture, that's at least a funny use of it. But that's few and far between. I'm going to go so far as to say, I think picture in picture is disrespectful to the talent wrestling in the ring, because you minimize them, put them in the corner, then you've got the bigger commercial going on over here. You can't see what all the work they're putting in. I'm like, well, what's the point of this? Like, just go to commercial. Like, I can barely see what's going on. Like, it's weird. It's distracting. I think it's disrespectful. I think that I don't see a purpose in it whatsoever. WWE does dumb crap like that sometimes too, where they have a wrestling match and they minimize it for picture in picture to show like storyline shenanigans going on in the back. And I'm like, well, why are you having the match then if you're just going to show me something going on in the back? I want to watch the match. And that's what I want out of this too. I want to watch the match. And if I can't watch the match, don't put it in a screen that's 12% of my TV screen in the bottom corner, so I can't even. Okay, did Orange Cassidy hit Sammy Guevara? Did Sammy Guevara hit Orange Cassidy? I think Orange Cassidy hit him. Like, that's not how I should be watching a wrestling match. If I wanted that, I'd watch it. If I wanted to watch a match that small, I'd put it on my phone and be done with it.
I know. I really, really hate it. And I understand that right now, technically, they see it as they only have one show, at least one show that's being televised. And so they're trying to get as much screen time as they can to have these great wrestling matches and storylines. I just think it devalues the product, and it's sort of not disrespectful to the talent, but it's sort of like a slap in their face sometimes, because the Cody Rhodes Brody Lee match, like the best move in that match when he DDT'd him through the table outside of the ring, and it was a dog collar match. It happened during picture-in-picture commercial break. So, like, that's not cool.
That's just bad booking. That's bad booking right there. Like, that brings up the other point right there, because then when it came back from break, it showed you a replay of it. So if you're just going to show us a replay of all the big spots that happened while you were in picture-in-picture, what the hell is the point of picture-in-picture? We're going to get the replay anyway. We were going to miss it anyway. We could barely see it. You showed us a replay of it. Just go to commercial. It's fine. It's not like when you're watching an episode of a sitcom on TV, they show you picture-in-picture of what the characters are doing while you're learning about spaghetti. Why would I need that for wrestling?
Again, so I was taking notes yesterday while watching Dynamite, because I specifically want to talk about this on the podcast. So a few more notes I took. So when we get to the Miro and Kip Sabian segment, right, I actually thought that was really cool. And I like the fact that they actually used a cameraman as a prop. And I do like the way they do their promos backstage. So like I know a lot of people don't like the idea of having Miro in the storyline. I'm not talking about the storyline. I'm talking about the way they do those promos. Like,
the execution of it.
Yeah, the way What's Their Face would destroy Sue's car, for example.
Yeah.
So that stuff is really cool. But then when they do their actual cinematic segments, it looks cool, but it also seems pointless and silly. So with Darby Allin, like, I really like Darby Allin, and they have him do these dark, black and white, twisted, pre-recorded cinematic segments.
Yeah, these little vignettes, yeah.
Yeah, these vignettes, which look, I guess, cool, but, like, why are you in a church setting yourself on fire? Why do you have spray paint on this car and then you light up the car on fire. Like, it's weird. It's bizarre for me. Like, I don't understand what they're trying to say about him and his character. Like you know what, Lance Archer, when he's doing backyard wrestling and he shows up and he just beats the crap out of everyone, it seems to line up with his character. And then sometimes when they do, like even with Pac, like some of them are good and some of them are like really weird. Like, why is Pac running around in his wrestling like shorts in the middle of the street? Like, why is he not dressed like normal? Like, why is it Pac is always dressed like a wrestler no matter where he is?
I think he just lives wrestling, man. He just lives it. He's never not Pac.
Like, you know, like we talked about the Vegas thing last week, which I thought was really great. Like, I love stuff like that. I love it's not that I want my wrestling shows to turn into like short films every week, but every so often stuff like that's cool. I like the fact that we have a talk show now, like with Britt Baker, and it's actually a female-led talk show, whereas usually it's always a man that does like you know, Rowdy Piper or whoever it is back in the days type thing. So there's a lot of things I still do like about the production values. But, I mean, overall, I just kind of feel like Dark still feels like a YouTube show. And if you're telling me that the last episode of Dark, which I didn't finish watching, was 2.5 hours long and had 17 matches, like, to me, that's a bigger show than Dynamite. So why don't you actually put more effort into making it seem like an actual, you know, TV show, even if I'm watching it on my computer screen, where it feels like there's a live audience and it feels like it's filmed live and it has a different look and feel from Dynamite. That's kind of like what I just want.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think they've built Dark into... I don't know if they expected Dark to become what it is, and I think it's bigger than they ever thought it would be. And now is the time to start putting real effort into it, because Taz and Excalibur have great chemistry on the mic. Anthony Ogogo is actually starting to really kind of settle into that routine. He's working on that too. They bring on constant guests throughout the show, like sometimes it's Brandy, sometimes it's Ricky Starks, but they keep and that works. Like the commentary thing is starting to build into its own entity. And if they actually put some effort into the visual brand of Dark, make it its own thing, and actually push to have it be a full-fledged show, they could have something really good there. And I think it's time that they did that. Well, honestly, I think you and I would both agree, it's well past time they did that. Like they have something they could really work with here if they put the effort in, and they need to put. And that's the thing, they need the effort. And it could be just something as simple as changing the ring aprons, swapping out the filters on a couple of lights, and throwing up some new ropes, and all of a sudden we're watching a different show from Dynamite. And Dark needs that if it's going to move forward into its next phase.
And I think, like, if one show's called Dynamite and one show's called Dark, one show should look darker and the other show should be brighter. Like, I think that there could be a nice contrast between both brands, sort of like Raw and SmackDown, the blue brand, the red brand, the gold brand. But going back to this episode of Dynamite, so looking at my notes here, so we get a match between Shida and Anna Jay, which, by the way, Anna Jay rocks. Shida's still my favorite in the women's division. I know some people are fed up of her. I still really like her. I actually like the fact that they allowed her to speak in the promo, because I know she's not fluent in English, but at least she tries, and she's got such charisma and personality and spunk that even if she doesn't speak much, like, I don't know, I feel like she says more than most wrestlers on a mic, even though she says like 5 words. Anyhow, but the point is, at the end of this match, right, we get Abaddon. She appears. She looks like she looks like she crawled out of like The Ring, you know, like like out of like some crazy Japanese horror film. And for most people who don't watch Dark, they might have no idea who Abaddon is, because I don't think she's ever appeared on Dynamite before. So that's like a really cool way to introduce Abaddon on Dynamite, because again, if you don't watch Dark, this is like, whoa, who the hell is this? It's kind of like when Kane shows up for the first time, you're like, whoa, who's this, right? So I like stuff like that. Like that is how they can also use Dynamite to promote and not persuade, but sort of like motivate people to actually watch Dark. It's like, you don't know who Abaddon is, maybe you should start watching Dark, because there's a lot of good wrestlers on Dark. Stuff like that I like. There was one more point I wanted to make. What was it again? Something that I would change.
I wish that that JR could have just yelled, "That must be Abaddon!" as she came down to the ring. That would have been hilarious. Calling back to Cade. That would have been great.
That would be amazing, yeah. The last thing I'm going to say that I wrote here in my notes was, I guess it's a question of how they decide how they're going to order the matches, like what comes first, what comes last. Because, look, I really, really like the Butcher and the Blade right now. I know it was hard on them at first. I think they're awesome right now. I love Pac. I love Ray Phoenix. And watching the match between Pac, Ray Phoenix, and the Butcher and the Blade was fantastic. And it helps that you have Eddie Kingston on commentary because he's amazing on commentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it should have been the last match. I mean, you're building to a sort of like pay-per-view on TV. I know it's not a pay-per-view, but it feels like a pay-per-view, right? The next episode of Dynamite, Winter is Coming, and the big match of that episode is Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. And so I kind of feel like Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley should have closed the show, not them. And I'm not even entirely sure if they're wrestling next week. So why did they close the show? And I know it has a lot to do with the ratings of when people tune in and they're competing with NXT. And I've been told that NXT, the last 2 episodes, have had an incredible final match. So was it because they're afraid of competing with that last match of NXT? Or did they feel that it made sense to put Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley halfway through Dynamite instead of at the end? Like sometimes I just don't understand the way they order the matches and their booking.
It's a strange choice. I agree with that too. But I honestly don't know. Like I think what a part of for me is Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. They need to. I don't feel like they're making as big a deal out of this as they should be. Like we're heading into. I agree with you completely with what you said. Next week's Dynamite, I feel like I should be giving them money for it because it feels like a pay-per-view. Like we've got a world title match between Kenny the Cleaner Omega and Jon Moxley. Like that's a big damn deal. And it's not the only big match they have on the card either. Like this is a massive Dynamite. This is the reality of it. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, but. And they've hyped this Jon Moxley Kenny Omega match with 2 consecutive weeks of contract signings that go awry segments. And I'm like, I can't think of a more stereotypical, less interesting wrestling segment. Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen these 1,000 times. I've seen every conceivable iteration of the contract signing gone awry segment. I have, and I know they do them. I know they're always going to do them, but that's all I've gotten to hype this. I know it. Like I'd like to see them. Either of them have had a match.
And again, I know we sound really negative this week, but the whole point was what we would change as producers. So therefore, we have to be negative because we're not going to change what we like. But the thing is, this is still a TV show. It's scripted. I'm sorry. Yes, they're athletes, and yes, they hurt themselves, and yes, it's dangerous when they're wrestling. But it's scripted. And it's sports entertainment, and I look at it like any TV show. Like you end with a cliffhanger. The second last episode of Game of Thrones is not going to end with Tyrion having tea with a dragon and telling jokes. Like it's going to end on a big moment. Someone dies, someone gets stabbed, a house blows up, dragons like appear, like something happens. It's you know what I mean. And I feel like your cliffhanger of Dynamite leading into Winter is Coming, the big event for Dynamite of 2020, in which you're promoting what you consider the biggest match of Dynamite so far of the year, it should have ended with Moxley and Kenny Omega. And by the way, we always talk about the appearance and how wrestlers dress and their attire and what they look like. I think Kenny Omega should rock a suit more often, like maybe every single time he appears, at least as a heel. Because he looks way cooler in a suit than he does in his like gym pants and.
Oh my God! Yes, he slayed that suit, man. It was just he looked like a professional. He looked like he was heading up Amazon in that suit, man. Like I can't agree with you more. He looked great.
So that's about it. I mean, like all in all, I guess my major complaint is, and I've said this for like 2 weeks in a row, is I want Dark to look different than Dynamite. I want Dark to feel like an actual wrestling show. And I don't care if it's on YouTube. You could still do it. And especially, like I said, if you're filming Dark and Dynamite in the same venue week after week, it should actually be easier for you to change things because you're not moving from city to city.
Well, let's call it what it is. The reality is, Dark is monetized. They have ads during it. They make money from it, put money back into it. Like, it's just as simple as that. That's the equation. And if they want it, like, they've got good views on the show. If they want to build them, that's part of how you build it. That's just reality.
Yeah, they had 312,000 views for the last episode of Dark, which aired 2 days ago, a day and a half ago. I still haven't had a chance to finish watching Dark, so that episode of Dark can easily get up to about 400,000 views, if not more. For sure, they have a lot of views, and they do advertise. You're totally right. I mean, the episode the week prior had 402,000 views, so they average about 400,000 views for some episodes. And they also have their YouTube channels. I mean, Being the Elite, Sammy's got his YouTube channel, Kip's got his YouTube channel. So yeah, anyhow, all in all, I'm pretty happy with AEW Dynamite. Clearly, I mean, I'm doing a podcast about the wrestling promotion. I'm ordering wrestling figures for $50. There's things I would want to approve. Yes, for sure. I do think it's still, like, in my opinion, the most interesting of all of the wrestling promotions, at least that I can watch here in Montreal. I mean, there's a lot of things I can't watch, like New Japan, for example. But I'm pretty happy with it.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Talk AEW. I'm Ian Goodwillie, of course, with every week with the editor-in-chief of TiltMagazine.net and GoobaStomp.com, Ricky D.
And just a reminder to listeners, you can listen to the show on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Deezer, Listen Notes, Pandora, and iHeartRadio. Plus, of course, over on our website, GoombaStomp.com, just hit the wrestling section and our podcast section. You can find every single one of our episodes, as well as Ian's weekly coverage of Dynamite and Dark.
And if you ask really nicely, Ricky and I might come to your house and just recite the podcast for you. We don't do it for everybody, but for special people.
Mariko should be back next week, and next week, of course, we're going to be doing a full episode dedicated to Winter is Coming.
Look forward to that. We'll see you all next week.
Let me tell you something. I'm out here for a reason. Next week, the same thing's going to happen that happened last week. Okay, you and Darby are getting whooped. Okay, but that's not my reason for being here. I need one of you management people to take that FTW championship and give it the respect it deserves. Put some respect on that. I'm tired of this shit.
Okay. Someone from management is here. I hear what you're saying. I'm digesting it all. I see the FTW championship. How about this? I'll run it up the flagpole.
What are you going to do next, Cody? Tell me creative has nothing for me? Any more of that corporate bullshit? What are you going to tell me? What are you going to tell me that? You're going to tell me that wish me best of luck in my future endeavors?
Okay,
Is that what you're going to do next? Is that what you're going to do next?
Okay. So this means everything. I get it, right? FTW is so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Well, answer me this. Your son, Hook, he's training to be a pro wrestler, right? Why the hell is he not training with you, but he's training with me?
Whoa.